Welcome, everybody. It's that time again. It's Thursday night, 8 o'clock, at least 8 o'clock Central Time, which is, as we all know, the only time zone that matters. So that means it's time for the Get Off My Lawn podcast. We're glad to have you all along. So we will give just a few minutes here for the notifications to go out before we make any announcements. But hopefully everybody is getting those notifications. We call this the best show that no one's watching because we really need to do some growing. So if you're out there, you're watching, you're listening, please just help us out. Hit that share button. I would rather have you share this to anybody and everybody that you can think of that might enjoy it, instead of sending money, which, I mean, Patreon patrons, we love you. Super chats are cool, but I'd still rather just have some support on the old share button. So please help us share that out. And if you are watching live, we would really like to know that you're here, and we'd also like to know where you are, especially if you're new and you're maybe a long-time listener, first-time caller. But go ahead and drop those comments out there. Several of you already are, at least out there on the YouTube side. But if you're watching on Facebook, then go ahead and drop some comments there too, because we see those pop up as they come through while we're live here. So let us know you're out there, and let us know where you're watching from or listening from. And if you're catching this on the replay, you can still do that, just not in the live chat. You can just leave the regular comments. Same place on Facebook, but on YouTube, you just have to leave a normal comment then below the video. But if it's live, that's the best part about this. You can actually interact with us. We are able to read what you're writing. And if you have a question for anyone on the panel or the panel at large, or a comment that pertains to the conversation as we go along, then we can put those up on the screen. And my fully semi-official co-host, Defense Dad, is here with us, and he knows how. He's working on it now. He's learning how to full screen and how to put stuff up on the screen for comments, and a couple more weeks of this, and he's going to be just exactly where he needs to be. What happened? He's gone. I thought he full screened me, but he's not. He dropped out. He'll be right back. All right, so let's introduce people. And hopefully Defense Dad gets back in here soon. But we've got a few familiar faces, a few usual suspects, and we've got another newbie on the show tonight. So let's start with the new guy and bring him in here. We have got Matt Mallory with us. You may know him from such popular shows as Meet the Pressers. You may know him from PS and Ed, which is not at all like Ed, and Eddie. Believe me, I checked. If you're looking for something like that, it's going to disappoint you. But honestly, there's some really cool stuff over on PS and Ed and on Meet the Pressers. Matt, how are you?
Awesome, sir. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate that. Is a lovely wall of death behind you.
You like that? Yeah, I figured I'd mix it up. Wasp injection knife, a sword, a bat with a barbed wire on it, little derringer. Yeah,
right.
For sure.
Right. That's who. Oh, that's like a Lucille bat there, huh?
Yeah, it is the Lucille bat. Illegal in New York State, so I use that in my use of force classes.
Is that a real Lucille bat? Like, that's not a movie prop. That's real barbed wire.
Yeah, that's real barbed wire.
Cool. Yep. Very cool. Glad to have you here. And you are in New York, right?
I am in New York. Don't hold that against me.
No.
Was a nice state once. NRA was founded here. I mean, come on.
Right? Exactly. NRA is getting in trouble there. So true. I don't want to see NRA get into too much trouble. I say bad things about them, but mostly I say bad things about Wayne and not about the organization at large. And if we could separate the two, I'd be a lot happier anyway. So
that's most people.
Your AG may just be the not the hero that we deserve, but the hero that we need, right?
Yeah, right.
We'll see. Anyway, we could probably spend a whole night just talking about NRA. We're not here for that. We've got a couple other people joining us here in the panel. So let's bring in Tom Knighton. And you may know him from such shows as this one, or you see him a lot on the Daily Bullet, some other stuff that you see with Paul Lathrop. But you can read what this man has to say at bearingarms.com. Some really good articles out there. Tom, how are you?
Fair to partly cloudy.
Good enough. We'll take it. There's my semi-official, fully semi-official. I can't ever get this right. Don't worry about me, kids. I just have a talk show here. I talk for a living too, and I can't do it. It's fine. So we've got Defense Dad. How are you?
Good. Sorry, I had to restart the computer. It was real spotty for some reason.
That's okay. You're back. That's all that matters. All right. Sorry, Tom. Didn't mean to cut you off. Tom's reporting in from south of the Mason-Dixon line. You're down there in Georgia country, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I'll be there Friday and Saturday.
Dude, where are you? You travel this country doing instruction and stuff more than I think anybody that I'm friends with. You are just all over the map, dude.
Well, thank you. I think
it's not a bad thing.
My wife will confirm that. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I don't
I'll
know
hit you up later. Find out where you're going to be in Georgia.
Sweet.
Alrighty. Joining us, becoming a familiar face here on the podcast, Paul Lathrop is in the house. Whoa. You know Paul as that's not Paul Lathrop. That's his governor.
I'm better with that.
Yeah.
she is nicer to look at.
Yes.
She is.
But she doesn't know this show, and Paul does. Paul is the deputy director for new media, right? Did I get it right?
You got it.
Second Amendment Foundation. And you know him from the Polite Society podcast, the Armed Society podcast when it was going, the Daily Bullet, the Weekly Bullet. And if you've been around anybody that I know in this circle, you probably know Paul. So glad to have you along, sir, coming to us from my neighbor to the north there in South Dakota.
Where we do have constitutional carry.
Right.
Fragger.
Yeah, you're going to be the only one on this panel that actually knows how that feels so far. We're working on it. All right. And then we've got a couple of the usual suspects coming to us also from the capital city of Lincoln, Nebraska. Everybody's favorite tactical teacher, Travis P11's in the house.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Going awesome. How about you?
Good. It's going great, man. Staying busy right now and got a lot of great content on the channel and having a lot of fun. So appreciate the invite, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Glad to have you along. Mm-hmm. And then from the undisclosed location, deep underground, somewhere possibly near Kansas, Nebraska border. We're never sure, but Pat is in the bunker. What's up?
Not much. Thanks for having me on tonight, John. Just had to do a little quick draw stuff out there in the chat really quick, but I think we got her under control now.
Well, is that Jihadi Joe, or what? I can't even read what that says.
I'm not really sure, but it didn't look good, didn't sound good, so I thought it was time to get rid of it pretty quick.
Bragging about his picture of Osama bin Laden. Wow.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, that's pretty much red flag in my mind. So
yeah,
anyway, glad to be on tonight. Thanks for having me on.
You betcha. Thanks for being here. All right. So real quick, a couple things that I want to mention before we get into this. You can find us here. Let's put that ticker up there. No, let's do this ticker. There we go. You can find us on the Self-Defense Radio Network, which is also something that Paul is attached to and is responsible for, or at least responsible in part. So you can find this show, you can find the Polite Society podcast, and several really, really great gun-related, freedom-related, Second Amendment-related shows over there on the Self-Defense Radio Network. So go check that website out. Again, I always say this, don't do it right now unless you can multitask, because we want you to stay here and be with us for this show. But after the fact, then go check out all the other great shows over there at sdrn.us. And if you're watching, then you can see that rolling across the screen there and grab the web address if you missed what I said. If you are not watching, if you are catching the audio only, you're listening after the fact in podcast form, we really invite you to join us every Thursday night at 8 Central Time to be part of the live chat and join us as we're live, because we're better than TV. You can actually interact with us, and we can not hear what you're saying, but at least you can communicate in almost real time within a 30-second delay of being real time. So, all right. Let's just kind of jump into this. So, constitutional carry, kind of a hot button right now here in Nebraska, because we do have a bill that is in the legislature. We're waiting to hear more from this. It's still in committee. It has not died in committee. It's not been voted on. So we're kind of in a holding pattern, just trying to rally the troops and get people to call, email, write, visit their state senators and also the senators that make up the Judiciary Committee there in Lincoln. Hopefully we can get this thing passed out to a full debate, because I'm pretty sure if it hits the Senate floor, then it'll pass. And the governor's already told us that if it comes to his desk, he will sign it, and we'll get that here in Nebraska. So that'll make us, depending on the other states and what the order is, we might be, 20, what are there now, 21, 22 states? We might be 23, we might be 24, 25, but I'd just like to be, before the end of the year, I'd like to be one.
There are currently 21.
Okay, so we're shooting for 22, but depending on how fast other states' legislatures move, typically our laws take effect 90 days from the last day of the session, which puts it, if all goes well, mid-July before it takes effect. So even if it does get signed, we're a few months out, but we would love to know that there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Having said all that, it's something that I'm talking to people about, of course, more now than ever before, especially being attached to Nebraska Firearms Owners Association. We are trying to do everything in our power as an organization to get this bill passed as well. Our members want it. Our board all want it. I mean, this is good for us. I still run into a lot of people, and these aren't anti-gun people. These aren't anti-freedom people per se, but I just run into a lot of gun owners here in Nebraska who aren't sure that constitutional carry is going to be a good thing. And they're a little skeptical that somebody should be able to just exercise their constitutionally protected freedoms just willy-nilly without having to take a class or get a permission slip from the state. And most of them don't even want to sit down and have the actual conversation where you point out that there's no other right that is listed in the Constitution that requires a permit. There's no other right that requires training. I don't need to get a permit or have any training to do this. Clearly, you can tell I'm not trained to do this. But there's no permit to have a podcast. There's no permit to print a newsletter or a newspaper. If I want to print it and I've got the resources to print and circulate a newspaper, I can do it. I don't have to have any kind of special government approval. Now, if I want to be taken seriously, then there are things I need to do, like get trained journalists and actual editors that know what they're doing. But that's, yeah, right. See, Tom agrees. I mean, that's not even a requisite. You don't have to have a permit to write articles for Bearing Arms.
Hell, I had a newspaper. I didn't do any of that stuff.
See, there you go. So that's my point.
Of course, in fairness, I don't have a newspaper now, so you take that for what it's worth.
Right. No, but that's just it. Is, we could have a whole discussion on how we could go through every right and just talk about how asinine it would be that you can't. You've got to have a permit to be exempted from an unlawful search or seizure under the Fourth Amendment. No, that's not how it works. Okay. But there are still people that they haven't taken that mental leap and compared their Second Amendment rights to all of the other rights that are listed and protected by our Constitution. And here in Nebraska, it's Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution. So we've got a double whammy there that says that our right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I still get a lot of people that aren't sure that they just want just anybody running around willy-nilly with a gun. So that's what I want to get into tonight is, first of all, we're going to just cover some of the normal objections that people have. And these aren't only anti-gun objections, but they could be. I mean, nothing's off the table right now as far as reasons why people would oppose constitutional carry. And for those of you that aren't sure what constitutional carry means, you don't have to have a permit to carry concealed. Now, Nebraska is an open carry state. We don't need a permit to open carry here. I know that there are states that that don't allow that. You don't need any kind of training or special schooling to go own a firearm. You don't need any kind of training, special schooling, or a permit to go carry a firearm as long as it's openly carried and not completely covered up. But somehow, if your coat flops over that holster and covers it up, now all of a sudden you need a permit and training to be able to cover it up with your coat. And I don't understand how covering it with my jacket should make me a criminal when having it uncovered doesn't. That doesn't make any sense either. But that's the first objection that I always hear is, well, there are just certain people that I don't think should be out there carrying guns. So that's one of them. I mean, we're not gonna go around the horn and call on everybody in turn tonight. So anybody feel free just to jump in.
I feel there should be certain people out there that can't have kids, but I mean,
right.
I was just about to say that.
Or driving on the road with a car they didn't need a permit to buy.
Yeah, and they do need a permit to operate it on a public thoroughfare, right? On a public right of way.
They can do it without if they want. I mean, they can. I mean,
nobody until they get caught. Sure, they can.
Nobody drives their car with a suspended license or without a
no insurance. That never happens.
It never happens.
No.
There was some guy who just got busted for driving without a license for like 75 years.
I heard about that.
Wow.
I mean, it was just insane.
Yeah,
he was a good driver.
Right.
He had never been pulled over.
Definitely not going to keep his head low.
He's like, we have to have a license? What?
Right. When did that start?
Right.
We're kind of joking about it, but honestly, people have gotten so used to in their life having to have a license for this, have to have a license for that, have to have permission for that. It's become normal to them. And if they would stop and think, it's not normal.
No. And with the people John's talked about that are uncomfortable with removing the permit, it's really a matter of, well, they've always had to have a permit. They just don't see any reason why you would change that.
Yeah.
It's a comfort. There's this comfort in not being free. Freedom is terrifying in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so what it is they're just comfortable that way. Here in Georgia, we're also having the same debate because we've got a constitutional carry bill. Right. We don't have open carry except with a permit.
So if you have a concealed permit, you could open carry?
We have a Georgia weapons license. It covers not just firearms, open or concealed, but also knives, etc. Above a certain length, etc.
Okay.
But we don't have a training requirement. We've never had a training requirement. Okay. So when people are like, well, I think people should have to get a permit. Why? I can buy a gun without a problem. Mm-hmm. I don't have to have any special training. All I'm having to do is go through and get fingerprinted and wait a few weeks before I get a permit so that I can do something that the bad guys aren't going to worry about anyways.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's that. It always comes back down to that. It's only the law abiding that follow any of these laws. Right. So I'm not going around the horn, but Matt, I do want to call on you because you live in one of the least free states for gun owners, but you travel all over the country.
For now.
For now. You go into constitutional carry states and shall issue states and may issue states. I mean, do you get that objection when people talk about the requirement for a permit or going constitutional carry? I mean, what do you say to people? And how universal is this objection, I guess, as well?
I see it constantly around the country. People, and I like going to free states to teach because it's kind of neat to see, free people living freely, right, or at least more free than New York. I'm kind of spoiled a little bit in the sense because I am law enforcement, so I don't have to abide by a lot of the stuff. And I think that's bull because, at its core, I'm a citizen just like anybody else. So, and you can't carry a cop on your back. I mean, I'd gladly, let somebody give me a piggyback ride around wherever they wanted to pay me to do so, but just doesn't work that way. But going to all these different states, I see the drastic difference between everything from open carry. Like, I'm not a huge fan of open carry, but I'm not going to say to somebody, well, you can't open carry, or your state's crazy for letting people open carry. I'm not a fan of it, because when I go into Walmart in my uniform, I see the way they look at me, and I'm a little like freaked out. Like, you're looking at me because you want to jump me, because you like me, they don't like me, you're going to poison my food, etc.
Right.
So open carry, I don't do it, because probably mainly because I'm in a state that doesn't allow it as far as civilians. So when I'm not on the job, I'm concealing my firearm. But one of the things that you had mentioned earlier, as far as the Second Amendment and not training, and Clint and I on our show, we really emphasize the well-regulated part in the Second Amendment. And back in the day, like when, Bobby was 8 years old and he'd go out and slay the deer because he knew how to use a firearm at 8. And kids these days, you ask them where milk comes from, and they say the fridge or mom or Walmart or almonds. What the frick? Anyway, so you got these 8-year-olds knowing how to use the gun back then, but that's because it was natural. It was in their life. They trained with the guns all the time. So well regulated just was a natural thing for them. They had the gun in their hand. They learned how to use it from the time that they were babies, basically. So
can I pause you just for a second? And I want to, for anybody who's out listening right now, when we say well regulated, the way that term was used in 1791 does not have anything to do with regulations or laws or restrictions. They're talking about like a well-regulated clock that keeps time, because it is well-regulated. That means it's in proper working condition. And that's what well-regulated militia actually means, is a militia that's in proper working condition, trained up with good equipment. So I just wanted to throw that out to
that's perfect.
Cut you off there.
No, that's perfect. That's actually, and so when people say, I'm not a fan of the government telling us that we have to be trained, I'm a fan of people taking it upon themselves. And fortunately, we have people eating Tide Pods these days, and that's just proof that we have a problem with society and people being able to do the smart, common sense thing, right? I guess common sense isn't so common.
It's not at all.
So unfortunately, that's right for the government to step in and say, well, we got to make a law to stop people from eating Tide Pods. They're not going to stop eating Tide Pods. They're stupid, right?
If that was the case, we should make a law to stop people from shooting up heroin and overdosing on that.
Right.
There you go.
If we'd make that illegal, just think of how many more lives would be saved.
Or,
that's just crazy talk.
I know.
Or
we
could make a law to say that even if you're a politician, you'll go to jail if you embezzle money or lie or use the Oval Office for your whatever, just anything. I mean, we can make laws like that, but then wait, don't we have those in place?
If only we had a law against just using a firearm to kill people or rob people or destroy property. If we'd make that stuff illegal, but
world peace.
But I mean, we need to attack the source of the problem. Of course, we need to outlaw the evil gun, not people. People aren't evil, only guns are. So but that's something that I mean, I really want to address the fact that, all kidding aside, we all agree. There's 7 people on this panel, and all 7 of us, I know I can speak for all 6 of you when I say that there are people out there that we don't want to have guns either.
For sure.
But the problem is that if they've not committed a crime, they've not been adjudicated mentally defective, they've not been they've not renounced their citizenship or been dishonorably discharged from the military or any of the other qualifying factors on a 4473 that would disqualify you from possessing a firearm. If you can check all those boxes honestly on a 4473 and you're okay to own and possess a firearm, then you are not a criminal for owning and possessing a firearm, and you shouldn't be a criminal for carrying that firearm with you. If you're going to use it to commit a crime, then the punishments for that need to have sharper teeth as well.
Yeah. And not plead them down or not.
The punishment should be a deterrent, not a challenge.
Exactly. In the perfect world, if I could jump in, because if we had 50 state constitutional carry, if you're going to take that firearm and use it in a crime, the chances of somebody you using that gun in a crime and the person you're going to be using that gun against having a gun of their own goes way the hell up. Your chances of living through using that gun in a crime go way down, and our problems go way down.
Yes, and that's been proven time and time again, right? And we'll get into that once we get into the pro side of constitutional carry. But you're right. I mean, that's where you got the name for your show, the Polite Society podcast, from the old adage, an armed society is a polite society, because you're not likely to start a fight when you know that there's a very likely chance that you don't win it. So
look, be nice to everybody until it's no longer time to be nice, right?
Exactly.
The water boy never starts the fight during football practice.
Right.
So if I could, I have a question for Matt. So, because you are law enforcement and you seem to be pro constitutional carry,
for sure.
Is that the general? And I don't know if you can answer this or not, but is that the general consensus of law enforcement in your area? And the reason I'm asking this is, here in Nebraska, two of the people that are fighting the legislation the most are the Lincoln and Omaha police chiefs. And when they testified against it, they specifically said it because it makes it harder for them to stop and question suspects, especially if they haven't committed a crime. They're not able to have it. So because of that, they're fighting it.
Well, I think we good?
Right, yeah,
I thought I was cutting you off.
That's frustrating to me.
No, for sure. So first off, the first thing I'd say is that the politicians are tying those chiefs' hands, and they're looking at it the wrong way. They're tying those chiefs' hands in the sense where you can't approach somebody in levels of DeBoer. You have to be able to approach somebody you have to have a reason. It's not Nazi Germany, papers, let me see your papers, right? They have to have a viable reason, probable cause to be able to go up to that individual and start interrogating them, or even just asking them questions. Otherwise, they're harassing them and they're infringing on their constitutional rights. So that's the first thing. I think politicians are just throwing too many laws out there, and thank God law enforcement have discretion and they can make a choice of whether they want to arrest somebody or whatnot right off the get-go. Because if they were forced to, then you'd be even more in a bigger position. But the other key thing you said there is police chiefs, which to me, at least in New York State, that applies to somebody who is in charge of a city, a big city that basically is Democratic run, that basically is very high on crime, right? So it's a different policing mindset. If you said sheriff, then right, or if you said state trooper in a state that was a Republican state or more of a conservative state, then I would say that they're probably going to think the other way. And if that's the same in your state, that's how it is in New York. Anybody that comes to me and says, I want to get into law enforcement, what should I do? I'm saying, don't work for a city and do not work for New York State. Work for a county sheriff. It's going to be the most conservative Republican mindset as far as pro gun, pro business, etc. And it's going to be more of a less community policing and more just good old boy policing style.
Well, and I should have prefaced that too, because I am pro law enforcement, but I live in Lincoln and Omaha. For those of you who don't know, who haven't heard us say it a million times, are the part of the state. These two cities house, was it over half of the population? I can't remember how much, but
a good half.
Yeah, it's half of the population in two cities, and they're the ones that are fighting it the most. We live in a state where it's predominantly red, except for two counties, and that happens to be Douglas and Lancaster, which the two cities reside in. So, it causes issues.
It's funny. I just want to clarify too, the biggest voice in opposition to the bill here in Nebraska is it's not just the police chief in Omaha, it's the police union.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I was going to say with police chiefs, my father's a retired police chief. That's why I'm going to interject here a little bit. It's something he was telling me is a lot of times the hiring of a police chief is inherently political.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the steps that go through to hiring them, they're going to find somebody who mirrors the politics of the people who are in charge of picking a police chief, the mayor, the committee, whatever. So in a small, big city that's heavily Democrat, you're going to get a fairly liberal lean with your police chiefs standing. Plus, there's also the fact, even if he doesn't agree with it, he's going to say what he has to do to keep his job.
Exactly. It works at the pleasure of the mayor or whoever's in charge, for sure.
Yeah, there's a reason my dad's a retired police chief.
Well, and I mean, Nebraska is no different than Illinois. You know, we're very, very conservative, except for Omaha and Lincoln. Illinois is great, except for Springfield and Chicago. Texas is great, except for Houston and Austin, right? So, I mean, every state, I think, is even Californians are great when you get outside of San Francisco, LA, and Sacramento. And
no, Sacramento is actually fairly solidly red.
San Jose, however.
Yeah, San Jose. Yeah, exactly.
True. Yep.
New York's the same way. I mean, we've got 2 counties in maybe 3 counties in upstate that are, fairly, liberal in the sense, but most of upstate New York's all red in that sense. And then it's really Long Island and New York City that does it. If we cut off Long Island and New York City, then we would be a conservative state. New York upstate would be.
We would be even more conservative here in Georgia if Sherman had just finished the job.
Shot fired.
Wow. Okay. But yeah, no, this is part of the objection here from the Omaha Police Union. And I have not been in the talks. I know that NFOA has met with OPOA, the Omaha Police Officers Association. And so has the senator who introduced the bill. I mean, he's working with OPOA to try and come together on an amendment where they're happy. The senator's still happy, and they'll pull their opposition. So talks are ongoing there. But from what I can gather, basically they're worried they're going to lose one of their big tools to pull known drug dealers and gangbangers off the street when they can't catch them in the act. Because for those of you that haven't been around law enforcement officers, it doesn't matter what they know. I mean, every cop in my town knows who the druggies are, who the dealers are, but you've got to prove it and get something that'll stick, right? That's the trouble.
Sure.
So in Omaha, it sounds like it's common in the rougher parts of town to see a bump under somebody's shirt and use that as grounds to stop them, say, hey, you have to have that registered in the city of Omaha. Is that a gun? Do you have it registered? And if it's not, then that person's off the street. Even if it wasn't a drug charge, they at least have something to pin on them. And this would go, or with constitutional carry, that would go away, because simply possessing a firearm would not be a crime, and it wouldn't be grounds for contact. I know, right, Paul?
So let's go back to what you originally said there, though, John. You were saying that the officers knew that this person was a drug dealer, which implies to me that they've been arrested in the past and they're still out on the effing street. Right? That they have not been held accountable for the acts that they're committing, or they had and then they got back out.
Well,
it's a short sentence,
or they're not. If it's somebody who they suspect is a prohibited person, I think, constitutional carry or not, if you suspect that there's a felon with a firearm in their possession, I would think that would be grounds for at least some contact. And of course, under Terry, you can see if they're carrying a weapon for your own protection, right? And so I'm just curious about what are we actually taking away besides stop and frisk? Because it sounds to me like stop and frisk. And I'm not accusing Omaha police of anything, so don't take my soundbite, anybody. But that's how it comes across to me, is they're worried we're going to take away stop and frisk.
Well, and he did specifically say in his testimony, like what you said, he said if they suspect or know someone to do those things, but they haven't yet got arrested for it, then it takes away their ability. So it was that he put that context that they hadn't crossed the line, that they got arrested for it, but they know they do it, so that they didn't have a reason to stop breaking the law.
I've got a question about that testimony. Did he say how often that happens?
No, and nobody asked.
No,
because I've never worked on the street as a law enforcement officer. I've never been a police officer, but like I said, I was raised by one. And it's just not, most of the guys that they knew were drug dealers or pimps or whatever, they've been caught. There's a handful that are smart enough to not get caught, but those guys aren't on the street dealing.
Right. Yeah. For anybody that wants to see Nebraska's hearing, I'm going to put the link in the chat section here for everybody to see. Just know that there's 2 minutes and 39 seconds of nothing before it gets going. So skip ahead to 2:39 in the video, but there's a link to that was posted up on YouTube.
And I guess
go ahead.
My thought on that, John, and I wasn't coming down on you when I was mentioning that. I guess
Sure.
the root of that, my thought is back to the politicians. These politicians make the laws, law enforcement enforce them, and then another politician, a DA, decides to plead it down. Right, felony becomes a misdemeanor, misdemeanor becomes a violation, a slap on the wrist, you got a fine, and law enforcement are trying to get as many charges against these people and throwing them on the wall to see what sticks on this DA's wall, and they're going to pick the ones that they know they can win, and they'd rather get somebody to plead guilty than actually have to try to take them to court and get a higher charge. So you know what, you got a felony, but if you admit guilt to this lower misdemeanor, then it won't be as bad. Just admit guilt to this. You won't have a felony. You'll have a misdemeanor charge, and that happens all the time. Wheeling and dealing.
Prosecutor gets a conviction.
Yep.
So they mark it in the win column. No, you're right, and there's so much of that going on.
It is, and it makes it harder for law enforcement to do their job, and it makes it more dangerous too. And once again, if we go back to who's the one that's getting the bad part of this deal, it's the legal people, the prudent people, the people that just wanted to defend themselves against the dirtbags out there doing bad, heinous things.
Oh, right, exactly. Nope.
Yeah, and okay, I didn't mean to make it all about that. I just wanted your opinion on it since you're in the business. So,
sure.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Sometimes I kind of get on those rabbit holes.
For those of you watching and listening, none of us are attorneys. None of us are giving legal advice, and Matt only speaks for himself and not his department tonight or any other department in the world.
Thank you.
And none of us stayed at a Holiday Inn
Travis only
Express
speaks
last
for
night.
himself. And not any other school teacher in the world. And Tom doesn't speak for himself. Have you ever noticed Tom doesn't talk when Paul's drinking water? I worry about these two guys.
Wow. Like you paid a lot of attention.
Okay, see here, I'm talking. He's drinking water now. Everyone is
added a new trick. All right, I sit corrected. So that is the biggest objection that we've gotten in the legislature so far is the police don't want to lose a tool in their toolbox. And I hear, just the generic, well, I don't think just anybody should be able to have a gun. Well, not just anybody can, but if you can legally purchase it and legally possess it and legally carry it in an open holster, then what's the difference? Why should you have to spend $100+ on a class and another $100 with the state to get a little card that says that your coat can cover it up? I think that's completely bogus. So, and we'll try to not all talk at once, but what other objections can you think of, or have you heard from people, any of you, to not needing a permit to concealed carry?
If I could jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
I
think two of you are talking there. Paul, go ahead.
The one I hear most often coming from media when constitution carry is brought up, or really any expansion of freedoms is brought up, is the old blood is going to run in the streets. There's going to be road rage will turn deadly. And in case after case after case, when constitutional carry goes through, crime goes down.
No, that's
the most impressive thing about that argument is how often they use it, despite it being proven wrong every single time. I remember concealed carry. I remember stand your ground. I remember all these pro-gun laws being passed, and the streets are going to run red with blood, and it never happened.
Well, you look at the false narrative that was pushed with the Kyle Rittenhouse case, as far as him carrying the gun across state lines, him not legally supposed to have the gun, how he got charged with that. charged. They charged him with it, and the judge had the judge threw that charge out. I mean, and it's still I have students in my classes to this day. Oh well, he should be convicted for something. He crossed state lines with the gun. I'm like, he was in the state. He got the gun in the state, and but he legally shouldn't have had the. You're watching too much CNN, buddy. You need to watch the case.
Yeah.
Nice, too much CNN.
Well, I mean,
But no, that's
really
the truth, though. CNN and the networks like them have got this misinformation. We'll talk about more of that next week, I think. But they've gotten out this misinformation campaign that simply possessing a gun is suspicious, and carrying it across state lines is somehow tantamount to bootlegging whiskey in 1930.
But what's funny is how transporting a gun across a state line is this heinous crime, but illegally crossing a national border is a non-thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah, they're not bringing guns with them. Come on now, just the
right. We're sitting in the back.
Of course, they're not.
Just fentanyl and meth and opium and
the Obama administration was the one sending the guns back the other way.
Kids that aren't there.
They weren't bringing it with them.
But
Fast
no
and
guns.
Furious.
Right?
That's true.
Yep, Fast and Furious.
You know,
they did get Fast and Furious with some guns.
I have an analogy that I use for people that are anti-gun, and usually I'll start it like this. Do you have a fire extinguisher in your house? And they're like, well, yeah, of course I do. I'm like, okay, are you expected to be a fireman? Well, no. I'm like, okay. So a gun is just like a fire extinguisher. They're both tools that can save lives. You're not
extinguisher.
Yeah, exactly. You're not expected to be a police officer just because you have a firearm. If you know how to use the tool can save lives.
Well, and I want to go back to what Paul said with the blood running in the streets. It'll be the Wild West. It'll be the OK Corral all over again. Now, we actually, in Nebraska, we share a state line with 6 states. And right now, Colorado is the only neighbor we have that does not have constitutional carry. So in Wyoming, in South Dakota, in Iowa, in Missouri, and in Kansas, all constitutional carry states now, show me where crime and bloodshed and these crazy shootouts have happened. Show me one crazy shootout that wasn't gang and police related, that is just citizen on citizen.
And I want to make a note on the OK Corral for a second.
Yeah.
People talk about it's going to be the OK, shootout the OK Corral. They forget that shootout was facilitated because of gun control.
It was about gun control. They went down to disarm the citizens.
Tombstone was a no-gun zone.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
It was a gun-free. When you rode into town, you had to turn your guns in at the saloon or the.
Bert brought that with him
office.
from Dodge.
Yeah, and it was like you can't carry guns, and the Clantons and McLaury's had guns. Earps and Doc Holliday went to disarm them.
Yep.
Everything went sideways. That was a shootout of the OK Corral. So it's hilarious that that's the example they bring up if we don't have gun control.
Yeah.
When that only happened because of gun control.
Right.
No, you're right. The irony isn't lost.
It's another one of them stories that they use it and the truth just eludes them.
Well, it's because they don't know the facts. They hear about the OK Corral. They watch Tombstone. That's their knowledge of it.
If they watch Tombstone, they should know better. It's mentioned in Tombstone.
It is, but all they got is that we're as legal gun owners that we're going to run around going, "I'm your Huckleberry."
Okay, I actually use that line a lot.
Well, I have it on a patch that I'm going to have, but
on the opposite end of the
gun control didn't work.
Yeah.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, we've got in the smaller towns in Nebraska, we got sheriffs, and they're for the constitutional carry because they quite honestly, if something happens, they don't have enough manpower to fight some of the stuff where they're like, damn it. My parents live in a town of 350 people. Their local sheriff or police officer is also the city works person. He takes care of the parks. Like if you have to call him for something, it could be 20, 30 minutes before he can get to you.
Because he's got to show up on a lawnmower, for crying out loud.
Well, he's got a truck, but yeah, I mean and that's kind of how Nebraska is. It's in other towns or other states can be like that. You have rural
and
people that they don't have
where
enough
I-
manpower.
Where I grew up in Nebraska isn't the most rural or the most, desolate area. There are places that are more sparsely populated than where I came from, but my dad still is out ranching on the place where I grew up. He's 20 miles from a town of fewer than 300. And I thought there was one law enforcement officer in the whole county, but when we were up there a few weekends ago, there must be a deputy, at least part-time, because I've only thought they had a sheriff, but they must have a deputy now. But unless you catch a state patrol just happening to drive through, because I don't think any of them live in the county, then yeah, there's one, maybe two law enforcement officers. And if the deputy really is part-time, then he's only going to be there for weekends or big events where there's potential for, drunks getting disorderly. So yeah, it takes over an hour to drive from one end of that county to the other. It's a long, skinny county.
Wow.
And so people just understand that, the fire department is all volunteers. Neighbors come together and help fight fire. If you see smoke, you're going to quit what you're doing and go help save somebody's livelihood. But if it comes down to crime, yeah, you're still going to be your own first responder, right? Even if it's not a rural Nebraska county, it could be, you could be in the middle of Atlanta and you're still going to not get the seconds that you need while the cops are showing up to squash a crime, right? To have your crime extinguisher right there with you is what you need. And because again, it is a deterrent. And like Paul said, it's when more people are likely to be armed, then criminals are more likely to think twice about who they pick as their victim. That's one of the things.
I've got a firsthand
Go ahead.
example. About a year ago, there was an incident in my neighborhood where a couple of women got into a fight at a bar. One's like, yeah, tell me where you live. I'll come finish it. And they gave him a bogus address that was about 4 houses down from me.
Oh.
They hired someone, and middle of the night, I hear 4 gunshots. Well, it took 15 to 20 minutes for the police to come. My wife is immediately calling. I'm making sure there's not someone, running around the neighborhood taking shot at random houses.
Right.
She's calling 911. It takes about 15, 20 minutes to get here. Had it been someone going through shooting up houses, whatever, how many people could have been hurt?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And whose job is it?
I had a gun at that moment.
Whose job is it to go out there and stop that person? It's not yours. It's not your job as a non-law enforcement officer. Your job is to protect you and yours, right?
And that's really what I was out there for 2 purposes. Make sure my family wasn't in danger, and to hopefully be a good witness.
Exactly.
Amen.
That was it. That was it. Now, I wasn't going out there with harsh language.
Right.
Stop, or I shall say stop again.
Behave yourself.
Stop in the name of the law.
Stop in the name of good decency.
Stop. Collaborate and listen.
Ice is back with a brand new edition.
Freeze! Good buddy.
Okay, so let's try to get back on the rails here a little bit, though. No, that's a very good point. But are there any other constitutional carry objections that we haven't gotten to that we need to bring up and discuss? Because I really do want this to be a fun conversation, but serious too. Because if people are out there and they're not really sure where they come down, and we're not going to say offense after having Rob Morse on here a few weeks ago, we're going to call it a teeter-totter because people can slide back and forth on it, right, with their position. But if people aren't sure where on the teeter-totter they are for constitutional carry, do they want to be this end or that end or in the middle or somewhere? And they really do want us to give them some good info. I mean, let's talk about other legitimate things that people say would be a reason not to allow it.
I see a lot of times the memes that go around. We all see them. We all laugh at them. We're all like, "Oh, that guy needs to get in my class," or "That lady has to get in my class." Where you've got the Glock in the Crocs, or you've got the Glock in the plumber pants bat. Some of the funny ones, but there are some where like the gun's just not in a good holster. It's in a fabric holster where the trigger guard's exposed, or they got sweatpants on and it's like hanging off their hip. I think sometimes that,
or they've got it under their dash on a magnet mount.
Yeah. And then they forget it. I think one of the people put in the chat, actually, the comments, that they keep it in their vehicle. My first thought was, what if you forget it? You leave it in your vehicle. Glass only keeps good people honest. If the only thing between your gun and the outside world is glass, it's not locked up. But anyway, I digress. So I think stuff like that we're seeing on the internet, because we all live in that world these days, I think that actually puts a thing in people's mind, like, well, goodness, that gun's invisible, it's exposed, that's not how you carry it. They're listening to us saying it's wrong, and they're thinking some crazy person's going to be out there carrying a gun like that, and it could come out of the holster. Or you see the FBI agent that does a backflip, the gun falls out of his holster, he reaches for it and shoots somebody at on the dance floor. All these things just I think they add to that, that fodder that people are scared of it.
Well, I've heard of people saying, well, we need to legislate, if we're going to have constitutional carry, we need to mandate that they have it in a approved holster or something like that. And I'm thinking, well, are we going to have a holster list like California has an approved handgun list then?
Yeah,
like I can't wear this one, it's from Phobos, I can only wear the DeSantis or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting ridiculous.
I don't have to be mandated to exercise any other right. I don't get told that I can only speak my opinion if I'm standing, on my left foot facing north on a Thursday.
Rubbing
my belly with one hand and patting my head with the other, which I can do, but only with my left hand rubbing my belly and my right hand patting my head, because if I switch hands, my right hand still pats and my left hand still rubs. Don't ask me how I know. But that's just it, is we've got to draw the line. Are we going to be free or not?
Right.
And constitutional carry is all about freedom, and freedom can be scary. I get it.
So how many of you guys out there think that educating politicians is one of the ways to help? Granted, I get it. Some of them have nefarious ideas, but I kind of believe some of them just are going on fear. And when they have the ear of people of the same party going on fear, telling them what needs to be done, they're in their own echo chamber. And I think sometimes us on the other side going in and saying, no, that makes no sense. Think of it this way. At least gives them a little bit of that teeter-totter to start evening it out, maybe.
I really wish Nebraska had the, what is it in Virginia where the people go in and talk to the congressman that
Lobby
one day
day.
out of the year?
Lobby day.
Lobby day. I wish we had lobby day here. That would be so nice to be able to sit down. There's only, what do we have? I can't remember how many senators now. There's less than 50. So it wouldn't take, you could get to just about every senator in a day's time if you were, succinct in what you had to tell them when you meet with them. That would be so cool if they would do that. And yeah, some of these folks, obviously, we're not even going to scratch the surface and plant a seed, right? I get it.
Right.
But a lot of them really do, at least they want the knowledge. That might not change their position, but they really do want to know what they're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
So that would be so cool. I really wish, and as part of NFOA, we could maybe look into doing this, but I'm 2 hours away from Lincoln, 2 hours away from Omaha. So it's not as easy for me to organize, but I would love, while the Senate is in session in Lincoln, to get arranged to invite every senator out.
Nice.
to a range day, and look, this is a firearm. This is what an AR-15 looks like, feels like. It's not crazy. These things don't blow people up. Something like that.
Well, and it's been pretty obvious on some of the other stuff that I've seen within, they televise those testimonials. Mm-hmm. Some of the questions that the politicians on the actual committee asked made it obvious that some of them legit didn't know you actually still had to have a handgun permit in Lincoln to purchase a handgun, because they asked questions indicating that. And I was like, how are you on this committee? So yeah, educating the politician is a pretty big thing, because if you don't know a basic thing like that, how are you going to make a judgment on whether we should have constitutional carry or not?
Right.
Well, and something else to keep in mind is that if you're talking about, when you're going in and talking to these people, you can also dispel the image they have in their head of a gun owner.
Right.
because
if you
they
do it
all
right.
think- right, if you do it right. If
Yeah.
what they have in their head is the caricature painted by the media
Yep.
of who we are, that we just want, we're all sitting there surrounded by 50 guns looking for an excuse to shoot someone, and all this stuff. And you can go in, and even if you don't change their mind, you might do a little bit to dispel that, and that might give them a pause on something particularly egregious.
Mhm.
It's like, wait, I know some of these guys, and while I disagree with them, they're not this.
Right.
And over time, before long, they
So-
may start to shift them slowly.
So when you meet with politicians, what you want to do is wear the T-shirt talking about how the tree of liberty gets watered and things like that, right?
yes, that's always good.
Sic semper tyrannis.
And your argument should consist solely of shall not be infringed.
And cold dead hands.
So
Yeah, and cold dead hands. Yeah.
it's
absolutely.
funny, Tom, you say that because that's actually what I did just before COVID. I went down to Albany in New York and I met with 7 different political offices. And, my first thought was they're not going to give me the time of day. Now, I didn't get to meet with the actual senators or assemblymen. I got to meet with their staff, but I still got in there and I got to talk. And one of the offices I met with was Senator Parker's office. He had a bill at the time, still in committee now, but 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, actually, they wanted to have everybody turn over their username and password for all of their social media accounts.
Yes.
I
And they were
remember
going to
that.
have New York State troopers look at every post that anybody made private or public and see if they were mentally capable of having any gun, not just a handgun, but any firearm. And when I left the office, or as I was leaving the office, she said that I educated them enough that they're going to remove that from that portion from the bill. So, I mean, that's kind of where that was my motivation to keep that up and keep meeting with politicians. I don't know if she's blowing smoke. Hasn't become law yet. It's still a bill, but I'm gonna hold them accountable for sure if they don't do what they said.
Mhm.
But just stuff like that. I mean, just bringing common sense in there, talking like a normal human, making them see that you're just a regular person that just wants to be left alone by the government and be able to defend yourself from dirtbags.
Yeah.
So, John, I do
found it-
have a concern.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to ask you if
Tom, go ahead with your point. I don't want to overtalk you.
Oh no, I didn't have a point.
Okay. What I want to say, and again, I am totally in favor of constitutional carry. The only thing that scares me is I put a lot of time and a lot of effort into getting myself trained, reading the laws, the rules. I took the class, because I was told I had to get my concealed carry permit, and then I'm very conscious when I carry every day, and making it easy for people to carry is wonderful and great. What scares me is that, and this is going to be their own problem if they do this, but they don't necessarily educate themselves on what the law says about drawing that weapon. And I'm a little scared that you might have a couple Karens going off at each other because they bump into each other at Target, and the one person whips in their purse and whips their gun out. I mean, what's going to stop it now? I don't know. It really kind of bugs me.
Well,
I mean, that can happen now. It can happen now, but I just
and
see
again, when we shift gears, we're going
and I'm not saying I want mandatory training. Okay. I'm just saying that I just see how people act, how they road rage on each other without thinking. And as a person carrying a firearm, I think twice before I say things and do things. And I really hope that people that are packing a weapon in this state do the same, because there's a lot of idiots that don't.
That is a legitimate concern, though, that a lot of people in Nebraska, and I think the other 49 states as well, share, is that they think that there should be some sort of training necessary in order to to keep people, just to save them from themselves, right? It's like the McDonald's coffee cup that says, hey, this hot coffee, believe it or not, it's hot. $3
million.
We've become a society that needs to be saved from ourselves.
Right.
Have we not?
Well, it's like just walking out of your house with your gun in your hand, brandishing because somebody's breaking into your car. That can get you arrested. People, well, I didn't know that. Well, then they're going to get, I just think
Well, and Travis, if I could just interject, speaking from South Dakota, a constitutional carry state, that may have happened here, but it's rare. And I mean, very rare.
And Georgia is a no training state, and it's so in a way it's similar to South Dakota.
Well,
and
there may have to be some training, it's not really happening. Right. There may have to be cases where it's going to happen. People are like, oh, I shouldn't, whip my gun out when somebody cuts in front of you, Hy-Vee,
So I want to keep on this thought, but before I do, and before I shift gears here, does anybody have any other objections that we need to get out there on the table?
I think those are the big ones.
I think they are the big ones.
I think we covered the big ones.
Shane, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, and I was going to bring the same topic that Travis just did, and let's face it, this is a very unpopular thing to say among gun owners. I'm not for mandatory training. However, it does concern me a little bit because I've seen things of, especially, and not to pick on them because I'm a fairly new gun owner myself, but these new gun owners out there, like, they're posting videos on YouTube and they think it's funny the stuff they do at gun ranges, that they shoot through the ceiling because they're screwing around and because they don't know any better or no one's told them any better. And they think it's kind of, or you see horrible gun, control of the firearm. And it's not just on YouTube. I've seen some of that. Like, I've seen some new people out at the range and they have not taken it upon themselves to learn from anybody, and they're flagging people. And I'm going to sound like I'm a proponent for mandatory training, and I'm absolutely not. But if you carry something on your hip that has the potential to do what this could, I mean, somehow they've got to get it out to these newer people. Quite honestly, some of the older people.
I'm not trying to call you out, but when you see that in person at the range, what do?
I've had conversations.
Cease fire and have a teachable moment and say, look, you're going to get somebody hurt or worse, or do you just pack your stuff up and get out of Dodge? What do you do in a situation like that?
I've only had to call a ceasefire once because of that, and that was actually not out at the range I normally shoot at. But we're a place where I was doing some training, and I was kind of helping out some of the RS. So there was a situation, and luckily they had taken it upon themselves to do something about it, to get some training. But in the meantime, holy crap!
Right. Well,
but again, I don't want to sound like I'm pro training, but somehow you've got to get the word out to people when they purchase their first handgun that, hey, it's probably a good idea if you maybe look into taking a class, or find an uncle or a grandfather or somebody who's had guns for a while and ask them a few questions just before you show up to a range and start shooting.
Yeah, and I definitely am pro training. That's why I just got certified myself. I'm against mandatory training. I'm definitely for pro training, and that's where I want to shift gears now and talk about, the old Spider-Man Uncle Ben, right? With great power comes great responsibility. Well, before
we move on, Defense Dad, can I interject something here real fast?
Go ahead, Paul.
We did a story earlier this week on the Daily Bullet of the 5.1 million new gun owners last year. There was a news story that referenced materials, and I'm sorry, my brain is remnants of my stroke. My brain is not working at full speed right now, but there was a story from USCCA. They had a survey that came out that 54% of the people that were buying firearms last year were new people. Of those, 41%, if I'm remembering right, 47% asked about training, and 41% of those, 41% of the new people that bought firearms signed up for firearms training.
Good.
So the people that are coming brand new to firearms nationwide, according to NSSF, are getting training, and I think that's incredibly encouraging news.
Yeah, and that really is good. It's how do I want to say it? I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, I just think people should learn what to do, just to save themselves, for no other reason than if they don't properly know how to draw from a holster or put the gun back in the holster safely, that sort of thing. They could get themselves in all sorts of trouble. They could hurt themselves or their loved ones. So I think you just basically need to take it upon yourself to learn how to safely operate that firearm is really the point I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, and that's where I want to go. We're going to shift gears here and talk about reasons to pass constitutional carry. But before we do, I want to say that, it behooves you out there as a gun owner to learn how to properly, safely, and responsibly operate this tool, because it has the potential for great catastrophe, right? I mean, you hold in the palm of your hand literally the ability to take a life and to stop a beating heart. That should never be taken lightly. And when you first bring littles into experiencing firearms, they should understand, as soon as they're old enough to understand what death is, that this gun can cause it. You know, if you're a hunter, you need to prepare them for the fact that, hey, this gun, it can take a life. It's an animal, you know, it's a deer, it's a duck, it's whatever, but this was alive. Now it's dead and it's never coming back, right? I mean, we need to think about that. But at the same time, again, with any freedom that we exercise, there's always danger inherently attached to any freedom. You can't be free and completely safe. That's impossible. It's same teeter-totter, different ends. So yeah, you want to be free. You have to accept danger and you have to accept responsibility for yourself. Personal responsibility becomes a big factor. And I'm sorry, but ignorance of the law is never a defense. It's never going to be a defense. If you take it upon yourself to start carrying your firearm and you never have carried it before, you damn well better know how to run it safely and responsibly, and you better know how to keep yourself out of jail. And I mean, sometimes you can do everything right and still go to jail. Don't get me wrong. If you use your firearm in a self-defense capacity, you can just expect on spending at least a little time in jail. But and if it doesn't happen, cool. But it behooves you as a gun owner to know your laws,
right.
And that's where training comes in, because it shouldn't be mandatory, but you should sure want it. And what we see in our neighboring states,
and by God, it's fun.
So it's fun. It's a lot of fun, especially if you get a trainer that's as cool as I'm going to be when I grow up as a trainer and get my own classes scheduled. I'm getting my feet wet Saturday, but it's just some of my family, and
That's what I smell.
That's how you start.
We're not touching guns. It's just a little bit of situational awareness stuff.
No, that's awesome.
We're getting it started. So here's what I want to say though with all that is, I understand that there's going to be a few people that get pinched, that they should know better, and they're not bad people and they're not intentionally criminals. But whenever constitutional carry does pass in my state, I fully expect to hear people, especially out in the western part, out around the panhandle, you know, that have never taken a class, don't know all of the laws, and get pinched for carrying their gun into a bank or a courthouse or something where they can't. I think that it sucks to be them. Again, it's their own fault for not knowing the laws, but I think that it's not going to take very many people to get into hot water before everybody else pays attention, hopefully learns from Dum-Dum's mistake, right? I mean, how many times do you have to watch somebody stick a fork in a plug-in before you realize, hey, I'm not going to stick a fork in the plug-in because that doesn't end well ever. You know, I mean...
Well, you know, in a way, the media, the anti-gun media, is actually going to work to help in this case, because they're going to run every story and go, see, irresponsible gun owners, look how bad they are, and people are going to see that and go, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Yep.
And I agree with you, which goes back to what G Webs was just saying. That comment that I put up, though, I mean, if that was happening, we'd know it, right? They would have a leg to stand on, and they don't, because somebody find me the most recent article anywhere in this country in a constitutional carry state where somebody was irresponsible and used their firearm irresponsibly to settle an argument or something like that. It just doesn't happen. Like G said, people don't just shoot each other for no reason. And I think most people understand that self-defense is self-defense, right? There's going to be some people that are dumb enough to kill somebody over their car getting stolen, which, again, learn from Dum-Dum's mistake and don't shoot somebody for something that your insurance will pay for. But other than that, I don't know of any article that I've read where somebody was actually made blood run in the streets because they were concealed carrying, and it wasn't a self-defense situation.
There was a situation a couple years ago in Florida. Guy got into an altercation over a parking spot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I remember that one.
He got knocked on his ass.
Yep.
Pulled his gun and killed the guy.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
In front of his girlfriend and their kid.
Right.
There's one.
The fact that I can recall that from several years ago.
Yep.
I write 7 to 8 stories per day, so I write a lot of news.
Yeah.
I can remember that one from several years ago, which should tell you just how rare it actually is.
Yeah, in my town, in the last 48 hours, in the last, I'll say 5 days, we've had 3 or 4 major car accidents on highways locally where somebody died, a car in a semi or a car in a school bus or something. So yeah, I lose track of the articles about car accidents because they happen all the time. But you're right, that one isolated incident in not even a constitutional carry state.
Right.
No.
I mean, he was a legal concealed carrier, permitted carrier.
Right.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, he parked in an illegal spot himself to go complain to her about parking in a handicap spot that she shouldn't have been. So it's like,
yeah,
there was one
wrong.
I use that.
Sorry.
Cut you off.
I'm having a delay here on my internet, so I apologize when I'm talking over people. There was one recently. My family, let's just say a family member of mine, lives down in Texas. No one was actually shot, but a lady who had recently gotten her firearm, and I believe Texas is open carry or is constitutional carry, aren't they?
Yes,
Now they are.
Now it is.
It was after that, and they're using this as an example for the people who are against it to try to get it taken away down there. Is here in the last few months, there was a gal that pulled her gun over an argument. No one was shot, but she pulled her gun and pointed at someone over a dispute of a parking spot. So instances like that, and just people need to have some common sense. It doesn't help us at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Tom, that story in Florida, I actually use that in I coined a phrase called the 4 horses of your apocalypse: criminal, civil, mental, and jury of public opinion. Your life could change. It's not just about the criminal aspect of it. But I use that Florida case in my use of force class. I actually have one Monday night. I do it online and in person, pitter patter back and forth. And I really try to relate the known to the unknown. And going back to the original topic, John, with I use an analogy of driving. So if you're driving down the road and there's an emergency vehicle on the side of the road, what are you supposed to do?
Move over.
Give him space.
Right. You don't move over, you get pulled over. And then you say to the officer, "I'm sorry, officer, I didn't know." And the officer says, "Well, great. Now you do know. Here's your fine."
Yep.
It's ignorance of the law is not a defense. If you care about driving and you screw up driving, you could lose your privilege of driving.
Yes.
If you carry a firearm and you screw up with a gun, you could lose your freedom for the rest of your life. So
Yes.
if you take driving seriously and knowing the laws when they change and keeping up to par with them, you should take firearms seriously and know them even more. And that's how I pitch my use of force class to my New York students, because otherwise, if they don't get that, like, oh, wow, yeah, he's right, I don't want to be in jail the rest of my life for screwing up in an anti-gun state.
Yeah.
Or even in a free state like Florida.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was about to say, here in Georgia, we got a couple guys that are now spending life in prison because they thought they could play police officer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ahmaud Arbery got killed for it.
I compare that one to the Kyle Rittenhouse. I say, what's the difference between the Kyle Rittenhouse case and the Arbery case? And somebody, well, right. I mean, you had an angry mob of armed people chasing you. And the difference is that Arbery wasn't armed and Rittenhouse was. I mean, really, in the basic facts of it.
Well, and these examples are less than 1% of gun owners, but it's just you got, like everybody said, you got to have common sense. And that's something that tends to be lacking in this country sometimes these days. But and they don't have a lot of people don't have the benefits of, like me, and I'm assuming the rest of you guys, that you grew up with someone who taught you the right thing. There's a lot of people out there who grew up in anti-gun homes and they've changed their minds, and they really just don't know any better. And it's just I try to seek those people out and help them when I can.
Right.
No, that's a very good point. Okay, so we're probably going to end up going a little longer than we typically do, just because we haven't really gotten too much into the reasons to pass constitutional carry. But I want to get into those a little bit too, to plant that seed again for the people that aren't sure where they land on this teeter-totter. Well, we've talked about reasons not to do it, and why those really aren't necessarily really good reasons. So let's end on the high note. Let's talk about reasons why constitutional carry is good for the states that have it and would be good for the rest of us that don't have it yet. And first and foremost is there are a lot of citizens out there who flat out don't carry a gun concealed with a permit because they don't have the money or the time that it takes to get the class. In Nebraska, it's a mandatory 8-hour class. Curriculum has to be either what the State Patrol issues, or it has to be pre-approved from the State Patrol in order to be able to teach the class. I'm still waiting on that certification from State Patrol before I can do concealed carry. But the application is in. So, and that is going to run depending on where you go, where you live in the state. And part of the problem in Nebraska is, I know where I come from, you're going to probably have to drive 2 to 3 hours to get to a concealed carry course, because I just don't hear about anything out in that area. So you're going to come down this direction, or you're going to go down along the I-80 corridor, Kearney, North Platte. You're going to go out to Scotts Bluff. Some really good trainers out there at DEF Comp out in Scotts Bluff. Stephanie Schaefer and Lanny Hanks. If you're out in the Panhandle, go check them out. Good people. But and they didn't pay me to say that. I should get them to sponsor me. That'd be a good idea. But the thing is that number one, you've got to find a class. You've got to be able to get to it. You've got to take time off work. Some people can't afford to miss a day of work. And it's going to cost you anywhere from $50 or $60 to as much as $130 or more for that class, depending on the area and the instructor. And then you're going to turn around and take another $100 bill, because they don't take checks, another $100 bill to State Patrol. And there's only 5 or 6 places in the state where you can set the appointment for fingerprinting, because it's got to actually be a troop headquarters. And I think there are 5 or 6 locations in the whole state. So again, you're driving potentially 3-4 hours to get to the State Patrol office. That's another day off work. Or I don't think they do it on weekends. It's got to be a weekday.
Yeah.
So it's prohibitive for a lot of people. Now, let's say that the person that really needs this just filed a restraining order, and they're totally aware that the person against whom the order is filed doesn't respect this piece of paper the judge signed that says, hey, you can't come near me. Their options are live in fear or become empowered to be their own first responder, because even if the cops know the situation, which they will by that point, they still can't get there immediately, because again, they're not going to stake that person's house or apartment out and leave a cop there full time. And so this person is who needs to be a concealed carrier. They can have a firearm maybe in their home, but they can't live their life locked up in their house in fear. That's not freedom. So they have a job to go to. They have kids they have to take to school, to daycare. They're out and about, and they need to be armed, because literally their life may depend on it. We've all heard stories across this country of people that were waiting for their gun permit or whatever is the case, couldn't get a gun permit, and the restraining order did absolutely zero to stop the person that killed them. Right? We know these stories, these names.
Nikki Gozier, she was a guest on our show. We interviewed Nikki about her situation.
Yeah, her husband was killed by her stalker because she obeyed the law and disarmed herself to go in the restaurant.
Yep.
Who's the lady in New Jersey?
Carol Baum.
Carol Brown.
Bound, yeah.
Yeah, so she was killed waiting for her gun permit to get approved and processed, because she needed a gun to defend herself, and it took too long. And Mr. I don't know, I think estranged ex came in and took her life before she could defend her, or had the force multiplier, the tool that she needed to make things even. So yeah, I mean, we know these stories, we know this happens. Rob Morse actually ran some numbers, and he's a wizard with his numbers and his research. And he was giving me some things that I didn't get to in my testimony at the hearing on this bill in Lincoln. Everybody got told when we got in there, okay, you're getting 3 minutes. Oh, okay, let's cut this out. Let's cut this out. But if compared to the number of people killed by firearms in Nebraska, the number of people, the number of crimes thwarted by firearms in this state, passing constitutional carry would actually save, I want to say it was 2 to 2.5 more times more, not 2.5 people, 2.5 times the number of lives that are claimed in traffic accidents. So constitutional carry would be 2.5 times more effective than outlawing all motor vehicles to save lives in Nebraska.
Well, and the argument that people are against it are using to counter what you just said is they a lot of them, the opinion is, well, that's a non-argument, because if they can afford to buy the gun, they can also afford to take the class, and they can also afford this. They have no idea the cost involved. That maybe that person not only has a bad situation going on, but maybe it also took them 2 months to be able to save up for a $200 handgun.
Right.
What if it's a borrowed gun?
Or
What if it's a gun they bought 6 years ago when they were flush?
Yeah.
And now they're working at McDonald's.
But they think the cost doesn't matter. But like, yeah, whatever gun you purchase, like I was talking, and we're not the most expensive state. We're not the cheapest state to do it. But yeah, you've got anywhere from, on average, let's say $200. Then you got a holster, you got $50, and like you were saying,
ammo.
Then you got ammunition. You've got to be able to take the time off from work. You've got to find a babysitter, whatever.
Please learn how to shoot before you take your concealed carry class. That is not the time to be taught how to shoot it.
Well, in New York, it's you can't shoot it until you have your pistol license. You take the class, get your license, then you go shoot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. I'll kind of caveat off of what John in defense dad was saying. I brought this up a couple of weeks on another podcast. Let's say that you are on a budget, and you can't afford the most high blingiest, shoot 'em up gun, handgun, the fastest race, whatever, what have you. And let's say you get a high point, and that's all you can afford to protect yourself with. And which there ain't nothing wrong with. They're heavy, they're ugly, they're bulky, but hey, guess what? It's better than a sharp stick.
Yep.
And you still got to, the ammo, the holster, the go in and get your fingerprints and everything, all that adds up really quick. So somebody on a budget, that might be that $200-$300 away, especially with ammo costs and everything right now, they could be at home looking up videos and stuff on how to dry fire, how to tear it down, how to make sure that it's in good working order, how to maintain it and everything. A lot of that stuff, can be done online nowadays. I mean, granted, it's no substitution for actual live fire, but a person could be practicing pulling it from that position, however they decide to carry and everything. So, yeah, I mean, all that stuff can add up really quick.
Well, and here's the really cool part, and this is something that NFOA has been talking to some of our neighboring state counterparts, and we've got several trainers on our board, and we talk to, obviously we know trainers across the country. What we see in our neighboring states that have constitutional carry and other states as well that have it is that once constitutional carry gets passed, number one, the state issued permit actually goes up in numbers. More people get their state issued permit, not fewer. But the interest in training is just astoundingly higher. Because if you remove the $100 from the state to get the permit, and you remove the requirement to have all 8 hours of class time, because our 8 hours of class is about 4 hours or so of all the legal stuff, use of force, the aftermath, where you can carry, where you can't carry in Nebraska, no churches, no banks, no hospitals, no courthouses, several other places. But there's also, this is a bullet, this is a case, this is a primer, this is a brush, this is solvent. Here's how you clean your gun. This is a cylinder. This is a slide. This is the forearm on a magazine. This is, or on a rifle. This is the detachable magazine. This is a blind magazine. This is a butt plate. I mean, I grew up. I was born, as we said here a few weeks ago, I was born into having guns in the house and having them be a tool on the ranch. I already knew how to shoot. I didn't have to be taught how sight picture works, how stance works, how the components of a cartridge or a firearm. I knew how my gun worked. I had already field stripped it, cleaned it, shot it. I'm not saying that my instructor didn't teach me things, because I'd never had a formal class before, but I didn't need to know this stuff or go over it again to pass that part of the test, but I had to sit through it. So without the requirement from the state, now you can break that course up. If you want to have just a class for the people that know how to shoot, but they want to know the legal stuff, okay, I don't need a permit to carry. I want to carry. I want to stay out of jail and not get caught carrying someplace that's prohibited. I want that part of the class only. Then as an instructor, you can tailor the class to that part and give people exactly what they want. And then somebody else can sign up for the basic handgun class that needs to know all that stuff because they've never touched a gun before in their life. You can, as an instructor, it's actually a great thing because you can add more classes to your repertoire, more offerings, and you're more likely to get somebody to sign up for that 3 or 4 hour class than to sit through a whole Saturday or Sunday for 8 hours. Or you can break this up and do it over the course of 2 or 3 nights or whatever it is, after work. These are all reasons that the neighboring states instructors have told us that they actually got busier after constitutional carry than they were before. Even the ones that were worried that it was going to cost them their livelihood and that constitutional carry means we won't need instructors anymore. Gosh, no, we need more of them now in those states because the demand for training has increased.
Yeah,
well, and part of it too is the state's worried they're going to lose revenue because they won't get as many
fees,
permits.
I mean, taxes.
Most are going to keep permits of travel.
Exactly, Matt.
I want to point out something, kind of see if anyone else has noticed this, but the same people who think that having to travel 3 hours to get a permit, 3 hours to get training and travel another hour or 2 to get fingerprinted and spend all this money to get a permit, how it's the same people that think poor people it's impossible for them to get a picture ID to vote.
Yeah.
Touche.
They're incapable of getting a picture ID to vote, but doing all this stuff to exercise their Second Amendment right to bear arms. Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. And you reminded me of something that I talk about this when people are talking about how, I don't think that we should have constitutional carry without some sort of mandate that people get some training. And I tell them, you know what? You're right. I will 100% agree with you. And I will support that argument just as soon as we have the same number of class hours required before people can vote. And they have to renew that permit every 5 years as well.
Right.
Oh, no, we don't even want you to need a photo ID to vote. Okay, well, why? Because it's a constitutional right?
Because it's dangerous. We can't have people voting out there that don't know what they're voting for.
Yeah, we can't have, they can't afford for informed people to vote. That would screw up the whole plan.
Of course. Well, it was at one time, right, that you had to be a property owner to be able to vote or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah.
I believe so.
Down here in the South, we had all kinds of laws like that. they told us no.
Yeah. Weird.
John, a revelation that I had when we were talking earlier about the Chiefs and the Chiefs not wanting the constitutional carry. And
police
they said
chiefs?
The police chiefs.
Not the Washington Commanders, or not
correct.
The Kansas. No, never mind. That was
they had to change that, didn't they? Change that?
Stuff.
Like they took the OA or the little Indian off the Orlando Ole butter or whatever. Anyway, I digress. So the police chiefs that said that it's going to be harder for them to do their job, and my rebuttal to that would be adapt. figure out a better way to do it, figure out a different way to do it, right?
That's what I think too. I mean,
suck it up, Buttercup.
Forbid that the police actually have to be police now instead of picking the low-hanging fruit, and they have to actually go after the people breaking the law. Right. In fact, that was one of the things that Lincoln's police chief, who moved here from California, as somebody said earlier, from San Francisco. She's been in Lincoln less than a year, just over 6 months now. And I'm sure she's a nice lady. I didn't get a chance to interact with her, but I'm sure she's a nice lady personally.
Cuffs for you.
Right. But but one of the things that she said in her testimony, and it actually made the news clip from one of the local news affiliates that I was on there too, that they had me, one little bit of my testimony was the only pro testimony they ran, and then they ran 2 or 3 different people of the antis on that news clip, but that's a different topic. But one of the things that she said is a criminal might have a gun, but they're not a prohibited person. So they would have no reason to stop them. And I'm thinking, so define criminal then. What makes them a criminal? Because in free states and should be in all 50 states, again, simply possessing a firearm is not suspicious activity, and it is not a crime.
Right.
So
cart before the horse.
And there's a lot of people. And there's a lot of people
even here in this state, but again, predominantly Lincoln and Omaha for the most part. But there are a lot of people who think that simply owning a firearm should be a crime, that you're already strike one, you're a bad person, you're already a criminal just because you want to have one of these deadly death-dealing things that all you care about is killing children, or you're willing to sacrifice children on the altar of my freedom. And they don't understand us. They don't know that we love our families just as much as they love theirs, and we'll do anything that we can to protect our families, up to and including taking the life of somebody threatening our family's life or our own. But it's a whole separate. I mean, obviously, the mindset. I mean, that's not a teeter-totter. That's just a coin. I mean, they're 2 separate sides, right, of this coin. But that's just it. Is there are people, and unfortunately, people in law enforcement, in high offices of law enforcement in our state, that think that you automatically should be treated as a criminal just because you possess a firearm.
Right.
And constitutional carry would make it to where they can't arrest you for having the firearm, or even ask you if you have it. Or in Omaha, it's got to be registered unless you're a concealed carry license holder or permit holder.
Yeah,
so,
I know people in law enforcement that think that, like, no, that's what the police are for. I'm like, police can't be there all the time. And now we're seeing it even more with COVID and the defund the police and all that. And in New York State, we got bail reform and the SAFE Act and all these other freaking laws and acts that they put in place, thinking it's curbing crime, but what it's doing is just making it harder for law enforcement to do the job. And I did a course here. I had Jeff Gonzalez out. I hosted him a couple years ago, and one of the guys in the class was a Syracuse police officer down the road. And literally, he said, "Yeah, we arrested a guy 4 times the other night. 4 times. They had to arrest him 4 times. They could not detain him at all. They arrested him. ROR, gave him a release on your own recognizance. Go have more fun. Go do bad stuff." And he did. And then the 4th time, they finally had enough to hold the guy. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I've written a lot about that crap.
Yeah.
I mean, jail cells are not supposed to be revolving doors.
For sure.
That's a hotel.
Leave the light on.
You know, and
then the soap on the floor.
Yeah, and it's like, when it's easier to get in and out of the jail.
I need a good meal. Go punch a cop. Wait,
yeah,
no, not New York. You got to punch multiple cops multiple times, I guess.
Right. It's actually easier to go in and out of jail than in and out of a restaurant in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Both,
you have
really
to wear a mask.
right
you have to wear a mask for both, though. Clothes are optional for one, but well, we won't go there.
Well, I mean, restaurants are weird like that. Yeah.
Very true. Yeah, you guys were talking about conditioning. Somebody had mentioned it earlier, like conditioning. We're just so used to it. Like, this is the way it's been. Well, just because it's the way it's been doesn't mean that's the right way, right? Just because we've had pistol licenses in states or we've had all these restrictions doesn't mean that's the way to go. We went out to dinner today, and my wife put her mask on. I'm like, "What are you doing? Take that freaking thing off." She goes, "Oh yeah, so used to doing it." I'm like, "No, I'm used to not. I don't want to wear it. If somebody tells me to put it on." About the only time that I wear it when they tell me to put it on is while I'm in uniform because, or if I'm flying. That's it. Other than that, I ain't wearing a freaking mask.
Oh, I hated the day that I realized I was used to wearing it because I had to at work for a while.
I get very weirded out by the fact that I walk around with a firearm and a mask.
I love that.
I know.
And going into a bank.
Yeah, on Twitter, there was a former prosecutor talking early in COVID. He's like, "I'm going into a bank with a mask and a gun. I've prosecuted people on less evidence."
No kidding. Well, you can't do that in my state because you can go in with a mask. You just can't go in with a gun. Banks are off limits in Nebraska.
Banks are not prohibited off limits places here. And wherever he was, he could do it too. And he was like, I have successfully prosecuted people for doing less than I'm being required to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, you walk into a bank with a mask and a gun. Oh crap! Here we go.
I remember walking around Walmart.
Now it's just COVID.
It's a cold day. I had my hoodie under my coat, my hood pulled up, sunglasses on, my face covered up, gloves on. I got into Walmart. Normally, the sunglasses come off, the hood comes off, and I thought, screw it. I don't want anybody to know who I am. I'm just walking around like this. There was probably 6 square inches of skin showing on my whole body.
Right.
Well, I've long, for a while wondered just how much of how much of an issue the masks have caused for law enforcement being able to ID suspects. ID people.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
the facial
so tell me about the
Vegas
suspect.
Casinos.
He was wearing a mask. Oh, well, that describes everybody.
It was see-through a little bit. It was like a piece of lingerie over their face. Have you seen that?
The crocheted one?
Yeah, the crocheted one. It's like,
yes.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
I ran into a buddy of mine out at Home Depot, and his was just this mesh. And I'm like, you know what? Whatever, man.
Yeah.
I wasn't wearing one, so I didn't care.
Now it's like, who cares? I mean, that's one thing that I've realized after COVID with all the crap that's gone on. A lot of people don't like. I used to be on it. Phone would ring, I'd answer it within one ring. Email would come in, I'd respond within an hour. A lot of gray hairs from that. Now after COVID, I'm like, I'll get to it. I get to it. Takes a little longer, but my stress level's gone down quite a bit, just because I'm prioritizing things a lot better. So thank you, COVID. Sorry.
Yeah, no kidding. DJ's got a comment out here that takes me back a couple years here, pre-Coco. Yeah, I like to call it super SARS. A lot of banks made you remove hats and sunglasses before entering. There's a bank in my town that there is I don't know if it's still there. I haven't been in that bank since COVID, but there for a while we were shopping for new banks when First National Bank of Omaha decided that they were cutting ties with NRA and anybody like them. Then we cut ties with FNBO. Right. So we were bank shopping. We went into all the banks in town to see what they had for free checking and things like that. And one of them said, take your hat off, take your sunglasses off. There's a sign on the inner door that says, don't enter with your face and your head covered up. Mm-hmm. So I did. I mean, I wasn't thinking anything of it, but and then, that same bank, I'm sure 2 years later, put a sign up that said, don't come in here if your face isn't covered up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, here we have a mask mandate. We have all but 2 months of the whole thing, and I tell you what, it felt really weird when it first started. Like, you were like, am I allowed to carry a gun if I have my face mask? Like, people actually had to call and find out.
No, we did. We had it. NFOA had a lot of people reach out to us and ask us if they could carry with their face covered in Nebraska. And yes, you can.
Don't call the ATF with that question, please. God, don't. So that's the last thing we need is a mask requirement when you're carrying. Yeah,
can you imagine how they'd run with that? Well, we're going to make it illegal to carry with your face covered, and we're going to make it illegal to have your face uncovered. But we're not outlawing guns. Nobody's taking away your guns.
You joke, but that's the kind of shenanigans they like to pull.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, well, you still technically have a right to keep and bear arms. It's just impossible for you to do it.
It's no different than New York City. You can have this gun, but you can't take it out of your house.
Yeah, or to the 11 ranges in the city, which are always booked.
Yep,
by purpose.
Yep, and make sure your tank's topped off before you leave for the range, because you can't stop at the gas station on the way to or from.
Hey, remember, it wasn't all that long ago. You couldn't even take the gun out of the city.
Yeah,
I know. That's what I was talking about. Was those times? Yes.
You were. It was like, this is going to make us safer, because if you say, I'm sorry, but I was like, if you believe that more guns make New York City more dangerous, then why would you tell people not to take them out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you require them to stay in the city? I know. It's just like Chicago's mayor saying the gun problem in Chicago comes from Indiana's guns. They're all coming in from Indiana, because Lord knows how bloodthirsty the shootouts are in Terre Haute right now.
Right.
I mean, come on. What you can't even drive through French Lick at night because there's snipers on every building, all 3 buildings. I mean, Larry Bird's out there getting his basketball shot up. He can't even shoot hoops in the driveway anymore.
Goodness.
Indiana's
and
not
lots of places have those.
If Indiana guns were the problem, then wouldn't Indiana have the problem?
Yeah, that's
lots of places have those weird laws.
Well, it's like it's just like lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yes, like Mexico's lawsuit saying American guns are why we have all this violence. Well, we don't have that violence, and we got a lot more guns.
Yeah. Well, Mexican guns, though. I mean, some of those guns did come from America, but then they came back. So, I mean, I don't know.
So now are they illegal alien guns, or are they alien guns?
I think so.
No, those are just those
pulse rifles and things like that.
Those cartel CNC unmarked receivers that are flown in.
That's what AR stands for, right? Alien rifle.
Alien rifle.
Alien resident? No. Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, John. At least here in Nebraska, we can carry a range bag in the back of an SUV without the other people in the car who don't have concealed carry licenses being able to get charged with possession.
That's true. That's been the case for almost a year now.
Paul's back. Paul.
That actually is a new thing in Nebraska. There was a law on the books that never got cleared up, and then last year finally the housekeeping bill got passed for it. If you went into Cabela's and bought say you wanted to buy a Remington 870 that was on sale, and you carried it out in its Remington big green box and stuck it in the back of the Suburban, and then got pulled over driving home, you were technically guilty of concealed weapon. Even if you had a CHP, that only covers handguns in this state.
Yeah.
So now they've removed that and made it to where, as long as it's in a container that was designed for it, whether that's a gun case or the box or the whatever molded case it was in, but it can't be in a grocery bag.
Yeah, New York's got a lot of laws like that.
Yeah,
so they contradict each other.
I think Concealment Solutions makes an inside the waistband for the Remington 870.
I'm looking for
Is that a shotgun in your pocket,
carry.
or you just happen to see it?
I'm looking for the urban carry holster for a Mossberg Shockwave.
I want a shoulder holster for a Kentucky rifle.
You won't cover your trigger guard, John.
I want to get a Serpa for my, where is it? Going this way, 4570 revolver right there.
Nice. Is that the biggest, finest revolver?
That is the biggest, finest revolver.
Finest revolver.
I've shot it one-handed.
Really?
Yeah. Jerry Mitchell's little video he did with the 500 Smith & Wesson shortly after he was on our show and we were on his show, and he did the one with the hot dog and he stuck it in the cylinder gap. Well, I did a Matt's Corny video. My good old buddy Jerry shot a wiener with his big-ass gun. Well, I'm going to shoot something with my big-ass gun, and then I whipped my gun out. And then I said, it's a corny video, and I whipped the corn. And I did it with a ear of corn.
Cool.
It's funny.
How's the flame cut? How's the flame cut on a 4570?
Oh, it's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, in the morning.
For the record, I'm never going to be comfortable hearing about somebody shooting a wiener.
He didn't shoot the
cringed.
wiener. He just held the wiener up to the cylinder gap to show that why you should keep your fingers back.
Yeah, he just shoved his wiener in the cylinder gap.
But he went through the gamut, starting with the 22 long rifle revolver all the way up to the 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum.
Yeah.
But he did what, 357 and 44 Magnum on the way through there, and he
fun.
He's Jerry.
Yeah, don't put your finger anywhere near that cylinder gap.
Exactly. So I got a question I like get everybody's feedback on. Federally, do you think at all, even if we switch the House, the Senate, and the president again, do you think federally we'll see anything constitutional carry? There was rumors that it might have happened with Trump if he got a second term.
No, that won't happen until it comes through the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and I don't look for the Supreme Court to rule in our favor on that topic. I would, if anything, I would look for the Supreme Court to do what if they decide to rule on Roe versus Wade, they're going to kick it back down and say it's state's determination. It's not a federal issue, and I could see the Supreme Court saying constitutional carry should be determined by the states.
Yeah, well,
no,
because
I think Roe v. Wade was not. Abortion is not written into the Constitution. The Second Amendment is.
That's true.
The case, the NYSERPA, New York State case, they're supposed to be ruling on sometime in June. Yeah. That's going to be interesting.
I would expect that one actually early May.
Yeah, earlier than they said for sure, from what we're hearing. But my thought on the whole federal thing is, I get the question a lot in my classes, like, well, if they pass it federally, then we're good, right? And I'm like, no, we're in New York State. So let's look at this way. Federally, it's illegal to do drugs, but in New York State, it's legal. And the federal government doesn't do a damn thing about it. Yeah. Federally, it's illegal to harbor a fugitive. New York State, we got sanctuary cities. We're harboring illegal aliens. And the federal government doesn't do a damn thing about it. So you think the federal government's going to come in and do a damn thing about New York State, saying, you come into our state, we're going to prosecute you for bringing a gun in here. We don't care if there's federally constitutional carry. Yeah, and then people are like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense."
Two sides to that, Matt. Real quick, and I hate to take up all your time, John. I'm sorry, but
no, that's okay.
Two sides to that, real fast. Number one, I just reported on this today, and this came from my buddy John Richardson's blog, Only Guns and Money. New York City is hiring a crap ton of people in their background check department in the NYPD. Right, so they are expecting this to go against them. Yep. Secondly, when this goes against New York, and I very much expect it to, they are going to be dragged kicking and screaming into shall issue. They're going to go as barely shall issue as they can, and they're going to have to be sued into it. Then same with New Jersey, same with Hawaii, same with California.
Well, we already knew New York City was expecting this ruling to not go their way when they started trying to make the whole town gun-free zone, as much of the city as they can make it.
Yeah.
So that already said they were scared.
Yeah.
You know, that's actually a point too with the way New York handles things. There was a bill that came out quite a few years ago. It was looking it up real quick. Senate Bill 4284, if anybody wants to look it up, where because of the Massachusetts ruling on tasers and stun guns, going the Supreme Court way, saying they're covered under the Second Amendment back in, I think it was 2013. A lot of people in New York State, well, that means it's legal, right, in New York. I'm like, no, that's District 1. We're District 2. It's not the full Supreme Court. It was just that one justice that ruled that way. But there was U.S. District Justice Hurd ruled that they are constitutional because he didn't want the same thing to happen. So he just ruled in the way that he figured the Supreme Court would rule. Also to keep it out of the Supreme Court, so it wasn't the full Supreme Court having to rule on it. New York State still 4 years later, that was, I think, 16, 17. They still haven't even gotten rid of the law. They got a bill going forward that they haven't even made into law yet. And I asked them, I said, well, they're like, well, we don't want anybody to get caught up. I'm like, you're in limbo right now where you got a district court judge that said it's legal. You guys have a bill you haven't actually gotten even in front of the governor yet. And so people are getting hosed up. And I'm dealing with that at Albany, trying to get them to realize they need to get this bill signed so that they actually make it legal in New York State for tasers and stun guns. And tasers selling in New York State. They have been for a few years.
Yeah. That's something that, to the best of my knowledge, here in Nebraska, tasers, is there such a thing as a taser that doesn't shoot the electrodes out at
Yes.
a distance?
Band-Aid,
Anything
Kool-Aid,
that-
the terms are all confusing.
Anything that shoots out the electrodes, not legal for civilians in my state. Stun guns are legal. Pepper spray, of course, legal.
Any electric weapon in New York State technically is illegal right now in the law, and
But a
it's
lot of
in
people-
the process of becoming legal.
Everybody just says taser, and a lot of
Right.
people don't know the difference between taser and stun gun.
Exactly.
Stun gun's just a pain compliance. It's for those of you that know cattle or hogs or anything. It's a hot shot.
Yep.
It just makes it hurt where you hit them with it.
And it
whereas a
doesn't
taser
necessarily
actually-
look like a gun.
Right.
Stun gun.
But a taser actually incapacitates because it's basically like causing a grand mal seizure. It makes every muscle contract and you can't control yourself.
And
So-
you usually mess yourself.
Yeah, and that's
So-
what a taser looks like.
Yeah. So and a taser, or technically what we call it, is a CEW, conducted energy weapon, or a CED, because New York doesn't like the word weapon, conducted energy device. So a CED, CEW, taser, if you will, my brand name, where the cartridge is gone, but if the cartridge is in there, it would shoot the two probes. So a taser, if you will, can be a stun gun also.
Yeah.
Right? And this one's dead. But so if I pressed it, then those two probes there would actually be, I could do a drive stun and actually get the same concept of a stun gun, if you will.
Right.
Yeah, I need one of those because I am a parent.
Yes.
Well, and he has met me in person once before too. So
Get to bed.
I have.
Hell, I'm in retail. I could use one of those.
No kidding.
Oh yeah, retail.
Travis is a teacher. Just think
Get those Subaru
think
customers.
how nice
out of
that'd be in
there.
the classroom.
I like having
Yeah,
it
they
for
took that away from me the first day. The cattle prods are not popular, and they're great in the hallways to keep the kids going down the hallway and move along. There's nothing to see here, you know.
What about
Stop
John
making out.
Collins, Travis?
Yeah.
Using
Not yet. We're trying. We're testing them on the freshmen, but we have not had a chance to. Yeah.
I'm going to wish all the
You
best
know-
of luck on that because I hear great things.
Them freshmen will be stupid though. You just have a woman there that they want to impress, and they'll let you hit them with it. They don't care. Wait,
Oh, yeah.
say that out loud.
Well, I can control the shot collar with the app on my phone, so it makes it really convenient. I just tap it anytime I need them to pay attention. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
They
Nice.
still working at the kinks on the R&D on that.
Matt, for the record, you did say that out loud, but you didn't say anything we didn't already know.
Sure. Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right. Well,
I was one of those
Um,
freshmen.
let's start wrapping things up. Before we go around the horn and give everybody a chance to sign off, any other reasons to pass I always say concealed carry, but I mean constitutional carry. Any other reasons to pass constitutional carry that we haven't discussed?
It'll piss off all the right people.
It will.
That's a good point. That's
That is a very legitimate reason for a lot of us right there.
Do we
Yeah.
say crime will go down?
crime
We
will
already
go
said-
down and
Crime does
lives will
drop.
be saved.
Yeah, we actually it was cool because before my testimony, I was, I think, third that day. The first one up was Dr. John Lott. You
Oh, yeah.
may know that name. He flew out to Nebraska to testify at our hearing too.
Wow.
And I mean, he's forgotten more about these numbers and fighting for my rights than I'm ever going to learn. So it was cool to get to be around him and listen to what he had to say. Conveniently, the news station didn't run any of his testimony on the news.
Of course not.
No, they picked the guy that doesn't know what he's talking about and put me on there instead. So, yeah, and all 10 seconds of my part on the news. But anyway, no, that is a very, very legitimate reason. If you like to stir things up a little bit and make the left upset, then it's not a terrible reason there. But yeah, in all seriousness, is there any other thing that we haven't covered that we need to talk about before we start to wrap things up?
Life will go on.
Yeah.
It'll be just another day.
It really will, and that's what's happened. Is it's become a non-issue in every state that's passed it. Everybody is worried about these things happen. That's one of the things that Dr. Lott said. He was back in '97. He came to Lincoln to testify when they were first trying to pass permitted carry, concealed carry in Nebraska, which took till 2006 to get done. But he remembers the same exact arguments from opponents back then with the permit being in place, and it became a non-issue. And he also said that of any of the states that have passed constitutional carry, there's never even been a bill introduced, let alone a hearing on a bill to repeal it. And if there was the slightest issue in any of those states, there's a senator, or outside of my state, there's a state house person, Congress person, whatever they're called. We don't have those here. We only have one house. But there's somebody in the state senate or state house that's going to put in a bill to kill constitutional carry if there's any ammo that they can use to shoot that down. And the fact that there's never even been a bill introduced, let alone voted on by the governing body, says right there that it's a non-issue. It's become nothing, and which is what we want. We want it to get passed, and then we want to be out of the news, right? I mean, that's what we want to be in the news for, is being the 22nd state. But after that, I don't want to hear about Nebraska. I just want it to be nothing, which I think is true. I think that's what it's going to be, other than the few people that we know are going to get pinched because they they got used to carrying and didn't have a permit and crossed a state line into Colorado or something. That could happen. I could see that. But other than that, I don't think it's going to be a big problem at all. So at least it hasn't been in any of our neighbors around our area here. And we're the only state left in Tornado Alley. You can drive from Brownsville to Minot, North Dakota, and have constitutional carry in every mile of the journey except the parts where you're in Nebraska. But all the other states, there's 6 states in Tornado Alley. Yeah. 5 of them have constitutional carry. We're the only ones left.
Then after Nebraska, we're going to Canada, damn it. We're taking this all the way up to Winnipeg.
Right,
we'll take this to the Arctic Circle. North Pole, baby. Guns. It looks like Nebraska anyway once you go north to North Dakota. So let's just carry it on.
Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, darn it.
Hey,
all the way to Winnipeg.
Hey, I was scared to go to Canada. Like, I had to go to Michigan to teach a class, and I'm like, shit, it's 6 hours to go through Canada, but it's like 8 or 9 hours to go down around the lake. And I'm like, so bad wanted to just try it.
You would have gotten mixed into a convoy, and you'd be locked up right now in traffic in downtown Ottawa. You wouldn't be able to get to Michigan. There'd be people bringing you fuel in a gas can, risking their very freedoms to keep your motor going so you can blow that air horn.
You're probably right.
God bless Canadians.
Right. Well,
I love them.
Let's go around the horn. We'll let everybody sign off here, and we'll give everybody the rest of their nights back. So, Pat, we'll start with you. Closing thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Pat Hirsch, and just want to say thanks for having me on. Great chat with everybody tonight. I think a lot of good points and stuff were made tonight. A lot of the stuff that we've heard and been saying for a long time, but at the same time, never hurts to reiterate it. Got a couple new videos out. You can go take a look at those on some AR upgrades from Monster Tactical. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Go check out Pat Hirsch. All right. HERSH. Make sure you spell Hirsch right.
Yep.
All right. Dude, thanks for being here. All right. Travis, we will move up to you. Closing thoughts, and where can people find you?
Yeah, no, just again, it's always great to hear these discussions, and hopefully it's something that we can get passed in our state. So it's great. Appreciate the invite as always. And shameless plug, check out my podcast, Caliber Corner, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. Central Time, the greatest time zone in the world. And you can follow me over on my YouTube channel, Travis P11. So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. Good stuff.
You bet. Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Paul, we'll move over to you. Closing thoughts, and where can people find more of what you have to say? Not find you physically, literally, but where can people find you out there in the world on the interwebs or wherever?
Well, you can find me anywhere SAF broadcast, and that's generally 2 places, either on the Polite Society podcast on Facebook and YouTube, or on Second Amendment Foundation and Facebook and YouTube, or if you have the OpsLens app, we broadcast there. I do the Daily Bullet, I do the Weekly Bullet, and I do the Polite Society podcast. Basically, every day I am broadcasting something. Usually it's the Daily Bullet, but on Saturdays we do the Weekly Bullet. But just following news and reporting on what's happening and interviewing people that are making things happen. So check out saf.org and you can find out what I'm doing from anywhere on the website. Very
cool. Thanks for all that you do. And would you please thank Alan and the rest of the crew for everything that they're doing? I wish the general person, the just average Joe gun owner in America, knew what Alan has done for them and what he continues to do, and the rest of the organization as well. So please thank him for us when you get a chance.
I will be in if I could take just 2 more seconds, not this coming Saturday, but the Saturday after, there's going to be a big rally down in Phoenix, a big Second Amendment rally. Alan's going to be speaking there. I will absolutely relay your message to him there. But if you are viewing this, or if you're catching it on the podcast or whatever, if you can get to Phoenix on the 19th, there's going to be a huge Second Amendment rally. I'd love to meet you in person. Come see the rally. You can meet me. You can meet my wife, Susan. You can meet Alan Gottlieb there.
Very cool. So February 19th, 2022, just in case somebody's watching this a year from now or longer. Where in Phoenix?
Right on the Capitol grounds.
Awesome. All right. So go to Phoenix, find the Capitol, and find all the freedom-loving Arizonans and South Dakotans and Washingtonians and everybody else that are there.
Absolutely.
And chances are, if that's happening, you can probably, wherever Alan and Paul are, I would expect Danny and Cheryl Todd won't be far away, and some other great folks as well. So
Cheryl's the one that is organizing it.
And you are helping to stream that as well, right?
On the OpsLens app. Absolutely. If you'd like to see the rally, you cannot make it to Phoenix, download the OpsLens app. It'll be live on the app.
All right. And G-Webs out there has put up on the YouTube side, Second Amendment Rally AZ.com. It's 2ND Amendment Rally AZ.com. Let me, can I do this? It will. Okay. Real quick here, before we move on, I just want to copy and paste this real quick so that I can get this over onto the Facebook side as well. And I do that. And then that. Okay, I can't think or talk while I'm doing stuff, guys, so bear with me. Okay. That's up on both of the Facebook pages where this is going live right now too. So if you catch this on the replay again, check the comments and there's the website 2ND Amendment Rally AZ.com, Second Amendment Rally AZ.com. Paul, thanks for everything that you're doing too, both with your own stuff and with SAF. We appreciate you, and say hello to Susan for us.
Will do.
All righty. Tom, you're up next. Any closing thoughts from you? And then where can people find what you have to say?
My closing thoughts are I'm usually asleep for a couple of hours by now. So I'm just happy to be conscious. You can usually find me 2 places on the internet, bearingarms.com, where I'm writing tons of stuff. Also got a Substack where I talk more non-Second Amendment stuff, tomknighton.substack.com.
Okay. Very cool. So go check out both of those places and go check out Bearing Arms, because Tom's not the only great writer that's over there. There's all kinds of cool stuff coming all the time.
Okay. I guess I'll accept that.
I said you're not the only great one. I didn't say you're not a great writer. I just said that.
No. I prefer being the only great writer.
I wish you were. No, I'm glad that you're not. I'm glad that there are lots of great writers out there. But
no, we got some good people.
One of them.
I will drag them, but we got some good folks.
I like reading your stuff, and I'm not just saying that because you're bigger than me. So
I've met you both. You're not. There he's not.
I didn't figure.
This is going down the drain.
There's not many out there that are. So, all right, Matt, we'll move up to you. any closing thoughts from you, and then where can people find what you have to say?
Yeah, I'm glad you had me on. This was fun. Didn't know what to expect, so it's in good company.
Well, I'll give you the playlist. I should have let you in on the warnings ahead of time. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's good. It's good. I like, I walk into walls every once in a while. This was walking through a door to great people in the Second Amendment. So, so Mallory Unlimited is my conglomerate, my LLC, where that directs to all the stuff that I'm doing, PS and Ed, public safety and education, as well as Meet the Pressers. You can basically hit MalloryUnlimited.com, my last name, Mallory, Unlimited spelled out. And then on that, there's links to our farm, to our rental, our Airbnb, to PS and Ed, my training company, as well as Meet the Pressers, our show.
Very cool. Well, hopefully you won't be a stranger. You're welcome back anytime.
Awesome.
And if you find yourself in Nebraska, you better reach out so that we can. If I can't get to what you're doing, at least we can maybe meet up somewhere. So.
You can always host me for a class. That's traveling the country. I got good instructors like you wanting me to come to them.
Oh, is that how I know if I'm a good instructor? Is if I want?
I'm opening it up. I'm opening it up.
Yeah, well, I have my own set of challenges where I live, but we're always looking for cool things with NFOA, and in fact, that's one of the next projects we need to start on is our annual members meeting. Kind of moves around. We try to find a range to host it where we can have members come out and do some fun stuff at a range. So having a few guest speakers, that'd be cool.
Speaking of fun stuff, I almost forgot to mention. So next Friday, the 18th, is it? Yeah. I'll be at Eric Blanford, Iraq veteran 8888. So I'm going down to Eric's and we're going to record. We're going to do a duel, and I'm going to duel Eric and see if I can outshoot him with UTM. He shoot me quicker than I shoot him. We'll see. But anyway, that should be up on his YouTube channel whenever they get it up. But we're recording it next Friday.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Awesome.
All right. And where is he in Tennessee? Where is he?
In Georgia. He's in
Georgia.
In
I was
Georgia.
close.
Near Atlanta.
Somewhere east of here. I don't know. Same thing. No, it's not. I know it's not. Don't shoot me, Southerners. I know y'all are proud of where you're from.
Right.
Matt, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And plan on me picking your brain a lot as a USCCA instructor too. So glad that you're there on that Facebook group too. All right, Defense Dad. We'll move over to you. Closing thoughts, and where can people find you?
Oh, I think it was a good show. I apologize for my internet tonight. I don't know what was going on with that, but if you want to find me, I'm primarily on YouTube. I am on Odyssey and a little bit of Instagram. But if you want to see someone just having a little fun and occasionally doing something silly, check out the channel. Otherwise, that's about it.
That's one of the things I love about my show and what I do. We try to have a mix every week, unless it, like last week, it was just Robin Sandoval and me, and that was only the two of us the whole week, the whole night. But I like to have a mix of people who are authors and trainers and are actually doing things that take you all across the country. And then I also like to have the people that are just normal everyday people that aren't if there's an event, a big rally or oh shoot, why did my brain just go blank? Paul, what's the thing that SAF hosts every year? The big get together.
Gun Rights Policy Conference.
Yeah, the Gun Rights Policy Conference. Why I couldn't even come up with the initials there all of a sudden. If it's somebody that is year in year out asked to speak at Gun Rights Policy Conference, I mean, you're kind of a who's who among the Second Amendment community. That's one thing. But if you're not, if you're just the person that tunes in and watches the live stream of GRPC, and you're just the normal, teacher, farmer, maybe you do stuff on YouTube, maybe you don't. But I like the mix that we get of people that are kind of industry insiders. I don't know if industry is the right word, but insiders versus the people that are just doing their thing and exercising their freedom the way that Americans should. So I love the cross section of opinions, because not everybody on my panel is constantly rubbing elbows with tons of people that are doing the same stuff. So That's one of the things I really appreciate about all of you that come on the panel, especially you usual suspects that, like I said, you're not always rubbing elbows physically or digitally with other big 2A names. So
You know what I just
All
got
right.
out of all that? You called me normal.
wow,
It was normal.
that's what you got out of all that.
Hey, man,
well,
it's
you
my
know what?
prerogative.
Just tonight, just because I love you, man, we're gonna let you go with that. Yes, we're gonna let you. You're normal. You're one of those normal people. No, that's just it, though. I mean, you're a dad. You got into guns because you're a dad. It might have never happened, or might have been a lot longer coming if it wasn't for your little one and the crap that was happening in your neighborhood there for a while. So that's what I like. Is I mean, you've got the perspective of somebody that hasn't been a 2A champion your whole career. You haven't been a gun owner your whole life. That's why Defense Dad is here. And plus he's kind of a good looking fella. Ladies, he's single. Just saying.
But wait, not for another week or so, because I am not dating right before Valentine's Day.
So he's good looking and smart.
So
Yes.
good looking and smart. Yep. Travis and Defense Dad, both single eligible men. They both like long walks on the beach, pina coladas, and getting caught in the rain, but just not together. So
Rather do
Hey, we're not gonna
100-yard
judge.
walks at the gun range. I mean, that's,
Yeah, there you go. 100-yard walks at the gun range.
yes, walking up to check targets. That's what I meant.
Yep.
Yes, the way to each of these men's hearts is actually through the ammo counter, and so
I thought it was through the rib cage.
Well, I got like a good buffet too, but
it could be through the rib cage, right behind the sternum. But anyway, all right, everybody, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Do we have a list? Let's go through the list real quick before we sign off. If you were out there in the live chat commenting, then my beautiful bride, who's over here in the producer's chair, wrote your name down so I can thank you. So we had tonight in the house, we had Patriot in the Dark was in here before we were. Blitz, Defense Dad doing double duty. Jeffrey Minnig, who apparently knows where I'm from and knows who the deputy that I don't know up there in Kippahaw County is. Pat Hirsch doing double duty. Tacos and French fries making me hungry. G23, Gunpowder Beauty, the Men of Tupperware, Travis P11, G Webs, Keith Gregory, Tara Smith's Kitchen, Sergeant Joe Smith. I don't know if they're related. DJ Play Nice, Agorizer, Mike, Vanessa Kitty, Justin Gibbons, Wheeled and Well Armed, and C4 Defense. And then on Facebook, we had Justin Gibbons, and who else did I see out there? Saw one more. Kenny Lawless was out there. So those of you commenting on the Facebook side, thank you. We appreciate all of your comments on Facebook and YouTube both. Next week, again, I think we're just going to talk a little bit about not misinformation. We did that here a few weeks back or a few months back, but just how stupid are you if you get all of your news and not only that, but all of your life advice from people online. I mean, we're shutting people down for misinformation, but honestly, if you listen to a Joe Rogan podcast and that seriously shapes how you live your life, you probably got some other issues. So I want to talk about just how ridiculous that is and how the notion of shutting somebody down because of things that they say really is, not only can you not do it legally because the Constitution said so, but it's just dumb because you're dumb for this ever being an issue. If I said, you need to smear peanut butter on your head and go walk around on your hands, are you going to do it? And if it causes you problems and you fall over and break a hip or something, are you going to come after me and cancel me and shut me down because you were stupid? I mean, come on, guys. That's kind of what we're going to talk about next week. So we're going to have fun. Keep it light. We're not going to get super serious because if we got serious, I'd get mad about some of this crap. So we're going to keep it light. But that's next week. So tune in. Same time, same place, same bat channel. 8 o'clock Central Time, Thursday night. We'll see you there. On behalf of Paul and Tom, Travis and Pat, Matt, Defense Dad, Sandhills Sweetheart, and myself, thank you so much, all of you, for being here. Please hit the share button. Help us grow this. I think it's the best show that nobody's watching, but I really wish that it wasn't. I think it should be the best show that everybody's watching. So let's grow it. Help me do that. All you got to do is hit share. That's all you need to do, and then send it out to everybody that you know and say, hey, just give it a chance. Some of these guys actually know what they're talking about. So not me, but some of these guys actually know what they're talking about. So check it out for them at least. But that's it. We love you guys. God bless you. It's time to go. We're later than normal.